I did this, I swear. You guys. Okay. Welcome
Mic is
to
on.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Poker News Podcast. I'm Sarah Herring, this is Jeff Platt. We're here in the Amazon room getting ready for the most exciting, thanks Daniel, night, second to most exciting night of the year. Jeff, what's up?
Not much. This is it. This is what it's all about. The World Series of Poker main event. $10 million up top. The second biggest poker tournament in main event history. I thought last night's broadcast was pretty entertaining, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of it. You know, we keep talking about, are there going to be enough storylines? Are there going to be enough big names? And, like, maybe when it comes down to the main event final table,
Poker.
yeah, it just doesn't really matter that much. I've been super compelled by all of it. I've been locked in on every single minute. Now I'm sure it's interesting for you because you have to judge that balance between kind of trying to watch the broadcast, what pops up on whole cards cams, but you also have to be in the moment live because when players bust, they basically come straight to see you, right?
Yes, and I usually have no idea what's going on. It's actually really funny. As soon as there's an all-in and a call, everybody kind of stands up and yay, this is so exciting. And then you see on the screen, you've got two cards, which you really can't see fully. Like there might be a face or not a face, and then it's like which one, who has which thing. Like honestly, it's like actually being here. I think is you have the least amount of information about what's going on.
Too.
But we did get the bust-out interviews from everyone last night. And before we get too deep into the show, I want to give a shout-out to our sponsors, Global Poker. Global Poker is the home of online poker in America, thanks to their massive weekly tournament schedule and the chance to win through their jackpot sit-and-goes. With more than 1 million registered players in the United States, if you are not playing on Global Poker, then you are missing out. Head to www.globalpoker.com and set up an account today. So, I'm going to have to agree with you in that I really just think that stories kind of build themselves, although you know that I am still depressed about I like the November 9.
You did like the November 9. Yeah, right.
I like more stories.
Building the stories. Yeah.
I like when the rails come and you get to meet everyone's families. I think even when, in talking to both Zenkai and Milos Skerbeck yesterday, they were obviously really disappointed. But Zenkai, who ended up busting in a spot where he thought once we had got to 6 players, the plan was ultimately yesterday to play down to 6 players. It happened so fast, we ended up playing down to 5, and he had said, honestly, I really wish I just had one more day. Even if I busted in the same spot, I just expected to have one more day. And so I do think there is something to be said for the idea that, the dream stays alive longer.
Yeah, I think so. And we talked about, when you just have one day off, do you want to really try to dive into everything and all the coverage and all these players' histories and load your mind up with a bunch of studying tools? Or do you want to take it easy? Do you want to nap the whole day? It's just really hard to find that balance. From what it looked like, I don't think any player made a drastic shift in their strategy. It seemed to be pretty much what we expected, but
and I asked almost all the players because I
mix things up.
Yeah, this is normally something that you're always going to ask on the media day, as it were, is what's your strategy? Are you looking to look at tapes? Are you talking to your buddies who've been watching tapes? What's going on? And basically the same responses I got from all the players were that they didn't feel like there was enough information for it to even be accurate or valid as a source of information. And so they just said, I'm just going to keep playing the game that's been working. Although they, at least Zenkai specifically said, and Dario, whom I spoke to at the end of the night last night, they both said, the key is having your rail there with the action as it's happening. So you can be seeing what's happening in the moment.
It did seem like every player's rail had somebody or a couple of people watching the coverage and relaying kind of what happened back to everybody. Oh, Chad Holloway's mom is here.
Oh,
Chad,
my gosh. Chad, your mom's in the chat.
Pam's in the chat.
Pam, and also thanks for getting those almonds from Walgreens before the WSOP because I'm pregnant, by the way. I ate an entire package of Chad's almonds and they were delicious.
My mom in there?
Oh, look at those dimples.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Pam. Thanks for joining us. Jeez, that's the best.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Everyone always welcome. So someone did make mention in the chat, and I do think I'm really curious, Jeff, because this is something that you, having been able to actually watch the coverage, would have more information about.
Yeah.
So some people I did see were commenting, and there were some questions in the bust out interview time in the scrum about Kevin Ma's tanking.
Yeah.
I, of course, didn't really get to see this. It was far away. So what's going on there?
I think the second hand of the night, there was a raise and an all-in for 30 million or so. I can't remember who shoved. I guess it was Dario, considering the seating position. Maybe it was Marchington. I'm not sure. It gets to Kevin Maas, and he asks for a count of the shove. The blinds are 600K, 1.2 million, and the shove was for 30-ish. And you're totally allowed to ask for a count. That's well within your rights as a player.
It's not within your rights, though, to necessarily get an accurate count. So even bother?
That much we do know. Except for the fact that Maas had Jack 7. So in what universe is he calling a 30 million chip shove with Jack 7? And it was suited, but who cares? It makes no difference. There was a literally 0% chance that he was calling that shove. So he asked for a count. Dior gets a count, gets back to him. He thinks about it some more, and ends up folding. It's like there's no point in stalling or unnecessarily tanking because there are no other tables happening. So it's not like you're going to ladder up just because you're stalling at this table. And so,
well, couldn't you potentially? I mean, this might be like a really, really micro edge, but couldn't you potentially like put your opponents in a tougher position to the opponents who have smaller stacks than you, put them in a position of having to shove before
like you're saying the blinds will get up, will raise faster?
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, with 2 hour levels, like that's not really going, and with such small blind jumps, that's not really going to come into play, I don't think. So after that first unnecessary tank, a couple people thought, you know what, that was
maybe it was like a one-off.
Yeah, it was one-off, him kind of making fun of the whole Dario situation yesterday, and then he asked for a count on the next hand, and then throughout the night, he would just like have a hand where you knew he was just never calling and wait like 10 to 15 seconds and kind of look around and play with his chips. And when he did have a hand, he would like act pretty quickly. He was doing fine, except on one shove from Zenkai when he had ace high, and we again knew that there was no chance he was ever calling. He eventually had the clock called on him, I think by Gary Gates, who said, you know, I normally wouldn't call the clock in that spot, but there have been some reports that you're unnecessarily tanking. And Maz then said to him, that was a real one right there, that was a real one, but we still knew there was no chance he was calling there with ace high.
But then also, even the fact that you're saying that was a real one is indicative of
exactly,
that the other ones were fake ones,
exactly.
Right?
So it's just, it's mind-boggling. Unless he's trying to tilt everybody, you know, trying to act as the villain of sorts and trying to become hated by the poker Twitter world, which
it's working.
That goal he has accomplished, let me tell you. So I'm really curious to see how he plays tonight, because I guarantee you somebody on his rail, and I don't think he's even on Twitter, but for sure somebody on his rail has told him, hey, you know, you're looking pretty bad here in these spots. This is not making sense.
Well, and I mean, because the I think even like macro in this situation is that everybody can effing see what's going on, right? So like there's no world in which 2 hours from now every single person at the final table doesn't know that you're tanking with garbage. So like really the whole thing is kind of null and void based on the situation as a whole, right?
Right. And so along those lines, you know, I was texting Ben Ludlow, who's on Gary Gates' rail, because Ben texted me, he's like, man, this Maz guy has a ton of tough decisions. I'm like, no, he doesn't at all. Like, he's just tanking. And so then one hand comes along and Maz looks at his cards, starts playing with his chips, and I think Ben and Max Steinberg kind of did the Jeopardy theme song whistle, and then they yelled for a clock, and then Maz shoved on that hand. So on that hand, he actually did have a hand. But you could tell people were starting to get upset. I think Maz clearly, I think all the other players have come across really, really well, including all of the bust-out players. Milos
and
because
aggressive.
he wanted to win.
These players were playing
to
really
win, right?
aggressive and playing to win. And I asked some of them about that. And I was going to say, especially for having so many relative amateurs, I was shocked by the amount of play and that these players wanted to play. Like, I think I've been at enough final tables where it's just like fold. Nobody wants to be the first person to bust. Nobody wants to. Yeah, but these players were like, in it to win it. Let's get it.
I think so too. Milos Skirbic out in ninth, got it in with ace jack against Gary Gates' ace queen in a total cooler spot. But even that hand right there, like a lot of players in the main event at this specific point would not call there, even though you are supposed to with ace jack, because they're like, well, maybe I can ladder my way up tape. But Milos was playing to win. He raised with like king six of diamonds in mid position earlier, and then my guy Timothy Sue picks up threes under the gun, which he had more than, I think, 17 big blinds and no snap shove or related app would tell you to shove. He's like, screw this. I got a pair. I'm going to go with it. I'm all in. Like, let's go. And so I love that style. Nicholas Marchington, I thought, was also very willing to get the chips in. He doubled up early and then shoved a 7 over a raise from our chip leader, Hossein Ensan. Ensan happened to have kings. What do you think of Nick Marchington? Because I've thought that all of his interviews were just great. Like, I really like the kid. I think he represents himself pretty well.
He was adorable, and I have to say that I super appreciate, because I, like Jeff knows probably better than anyone, have to pee all the time. So
True.
I was in the bathroom when he busted, and it was like, I don't really need to be in the scrum. Anyone can hold the mic, right? So someone else was holding the mic. I came back, and my camera guy said, dude, I was like doing so many things and freaking out, I forgot to press record. I was like, haha, that's funny. He's like, no, legit, I forgot to press record.
That's a common joke.
That like when you finish shooting there, I was like, I forgot. He literally had just done that joke earlier. So I was like, that's funny. He's like, no, dude, I'm serious, I forgot. So I'm like chasing Marchington down the hallway, like, hey, can you please come back? I'm so sorry. Can I get one more with you? And he was so courteous, so cool. I mean, that's got to be like the last thing you want to do is like even walk back towards the Amazon room, much less like with the camera lights and all this. But he came back. He did a great interview, and I thought it was an interesting point. Both Skirbic and Zen Kai, I was talking to them about their, sort of style and strategy coming in. A lot of players are looking to make those jumps, those pay jumps, and actually. I don't want to say who told me, but I know that he had been offered several Skirbic specifically had been offered several sponsorship deals, and that he basically told everyone, I don't need any money, which I'm like, that's fucking awesome, first of all. But so I don't think the pay jumps maybe meant as much to him, for one thing, but even in talking to Zen Kai, who told me that the pay jumps mean a lot, and this is his family and everything, but he said, he's like, the pay jumps from 9th to 4th or 5th are really like, 200,000, 300,000. Like, we're not talking about, he's like, if you want to talk about life-changing money, you need to take second or first. And I mean, life-changing money, I guess, is a relative term, but he's like, what you want, you're aiming for first or second. And if you're playing to ladder up, you're not going to get first or second. And I was like, wow, that's such a like baller way to look at it. And I really appreciated that. If anybody surprised me the most yesterday, actually, I have to say it was Zen Kai, because Timothy Sue was adorable, right? The entire time. Marchington was adorable the whole time. Like, they were both just like really easily likable and enjoying themselves. Zen Kai, I thought he had the like biggest sourpuss face ever in like every picture. Like, every picture you see of him, it looks like he's like he ate something sour, or he's like grimacing or something. And I was like, dude, this guy is just like such an anti-hero. He's got like the snake tattoo thing, and like I was like, oh, he just looks like he's like from an 80s movie, and he's mad. But in the interview afterwards, he was very open, very genuine. Really, he was somber still. It wasn't like he was some silly, goofy person, but I really appreciated getting to see a different side of him, and recognizing that he was just taking this seriously, because it's a big deal.
And then you hear about his history with Tony Miles and him sticking by his friend Tony Miles when a lot of people kind of ran for the hills. That paid off financially, of course, for him last year, Tony Miles finishing second in the main. But those are two guys that are just going to be friends no matter what would happen in the financial world or the poker world. So I really came around to Kai also, and like really, really liked Kai, will like Kai for the future. Interesting moment that you could see when Maz busted Kai. Maz's rail, which I think is out of line, gave him the na 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 na, hey, goodbye, which is.
I was surprised with that too for how chill the rails have been so far and not super wasted. I thought everyone has been pretty chill. I was like, whoa, pump the brakes,
right,
guys.
And at first I thought that was Gary's rail because they've been doing the sha-la-la-la, hey, Gary Gates. And so I was like, maybe that was them. But no, it's like definitely Maz's rail. And then I think Donnie Peters pointed this out, that if you watch the WSOP Instagram story, and catch it now because it's going to expire soon, but you can see that after Kai busts, one of the members on Maz's rail is kind of like giving him the wave, like goodbye, see ya, and Tony Miles sees that guy. And keep in mind, Tony Miles has been working out a ton over this last year.
Tony Miles has been on American Ninja Warrior, dude. He could run you through the desert.
Tony Miles is ready to go, and Miles stepped up to this guy
do you want to come at my boy in this moment?
Yeah, and you could tell some people got in the middle of them. So, needless to say, that adds to the villain aspect of what we have approaching in this final table because of Maz.
In terms of a lot of the players not being necessarily professional poker players and that their rails maybe aren't full of professional poker players, that's not the case with Maz. We know that he does play poker regularly, right? And this is his game. So most of those people should be familiar with how inappropriate that
right, and even if you have people who are out of line, they might not know better.
Right, that's what I mean. If they're used to being at a hockey game, okay, fine. But
exactly. You just let them know. You're like, hey, we don't do that. You cheer for your guy as much as you want.
Yeah.
But don't direct anything at opposing players. I think that's.
And you know me, I'm all about listen, we don't need to be telling anybody what to say or do. Freedom, I'm all about it. Right. But at the same time, it's in this spot, in that type of moment, literally, you're just being nasty.
Right.
Why are you doing that? Right. You fucking won,
dude.
Let's
show
Take
a little
it easy.
Sportsmanship. Let's show a little class. Yeah, your guy. Yeah, cheer on your guy. You don't need to wave goodbye to the
You can just be happy. You can just yell.
Unbelievable. So
wow. So we're definitely getting the anti-hero story here. And you know what I was noticing yesterday as I was, writing my update and kind of looking at what to expect for today. Literally 0 people have talked about Alex Livingston. I think one time, who's this dark horse that's gonna just somehow make it in and
kind of he just never has really any chips, but is always kind of there. He's kind of it feels like he's never in last place either.
No,
it's just he's kind of hanging around either middle of the pack to the low end of the pack. He did make a massive fold. He raised with queens. Enson called behind with 8s, and Gary Gates 3-bet it out of the big blind with pocket 10s, and Livingston ended up folding queens, which was pretty shocking. I think that he thought, which he is correct on, that Gary Gates' 3-betting range in that spot with the chip leader Enson involved in the pot, his 3-betting range is pretty small. But still with
because he's just so actively trying to stay out of
just
the
trying
two
to stay
chip
out of
leaders
big
are trying to
pots.
stay out of each other's way.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to assume that Gates is strong when he's 3-betting, which Gates was, but he can be strong with hands besides aces
strong.
and kings. Yeah, tens are really
compared
strong,
to most hands,
especially
but not
when
compared
you're playing
to queens.
Pretty short-handed. Yeah, so that was a pretty huge fold. Also, Livingston tweeted, and this is part of why. I like him too. He's just being honest with us. He tweeted that Jack Effel came up to Dario Sammartino and sincerely apologized to him for his comments the other day when they had that chip count situation when Jack said, if you're calling 17, you're calling 22. And Jack apologized to the whole table as well, so I appreciated Livingston kind of getting
putting
that word out there. Yeah, I thought that was a strong move.
I never, you heard me, I was quiet AF during our talk on the whole thing because for me it's Jack has had so much shit to deal with all summer long. He literally, every time I see him, he just tells me that he's like a shit sandwich eater every single day. So for me, it's for him to make some funny little joking comment.
Right.
I know that he's not meaning it to be nasty, but if he sees how the poker world reacts and what it looks like, he's definitely going to comment.
But something that I didn't think about until I saw, I think David Williams mentioned it on Twitter, on that specific line, if you're calling 17, you're calling 22. Couldn't he have been if you're calling 17, which you did, you are required to call 22. Is that possible that that's what he was saying? He wasn't saying to Dario, well, if you were going to call 17, you were going to call 22. He was saying, you called 17, you call 22. That's the rule.
That's
so he was
possible.
trying to phrase it. So that's possible. I'm just throwing that out there. But smart of Jack, right of Jack to apologize to to everybody at the table. And I think Livingston said, by the way, this is kind of overwhelming, so thank you guys so much for the support, but it's hard to keep up with. I'm going on airplane mode until this is over. And then at the end he puts, have fun discussing the Queen's Fold in like a grimace face.
Oh, so good. But I mean, that goes right back to what Sam Greenwood said at the very beginning, whatever we were talking, day 6 or day 7 to Sam Greenwood, that people are capable of making way more folds than they're going to be making in another event. The WSOP main event, the fold range is way more aggressive than it is in a regular tournament. So, I mean, we're just seeing that play out.
And we're also seeing, like, in the chat, nobody's stuck up for Maz.
Dude,
like
everyone is
hating.
Yeah. And I'm so funny because I feel like there was definitely talk about the annoying tanking, but the rest of the stuff I feel like was not coming out in the scrum. And I feel like if he does bust today, we gonna get some interesting stuff in the chat for show.
Yeah, dim the lights and here we go. I'm assuming that Kara will try to talk to Maz when he comes in. Maybe it won't even be on camera, but somebody will talk to him. And maybe it's Lon McCarron or Norman Chad or Jamie Kerstetter, Maria Ho, and just be like,
pull him
hey,
aside and say everyone hates you?
No, not from an advice standpoint. Just strictly why are you tanking unnecessarily? Like why is the tanking? What's the thought process here? Just so they have something to add to the broadcast. Yeah.
Okay.
They wouldn't say either way, like people like you or people hate you, even though people hate him.
That's so, and like, is there other stuff going on? It's mostly he's just being an obvious dick. I'm just surprised by the reaction in the chat. People hate this guy.
It's so tilting when like you think about what's good for the game, and this is, the biggest stage that poker has. We're live on ESPN2 last night, on ESPN tonight, and I'm just thinking about somebody turning to ESPN and being like, oh, cool, poker's on. Oh, cool, the World Series of Poker main event, 10 million up for grabs, and they're seeing this guy look at 8-4 off. And just kind of like play with his chips and look around. He's like, "Oh, how much are you playing? Okay. How much are you playing?" When he just asked that the hand before.
Dude, I literally hate you right now. Like,
and
when
it's
you're
like,
doing
right. Yep. See, that got Sarah to hate me.
I mean, I guess it makes sense.
Case in point. So like, hopefully it stops.
We'll see. We'll see if everything changes, and we'll see how much he knows or cares what the Twitterverse is saying. I mean, I feel like if you're gonna have this type of behavior, you also may know that everyone's going to hate you anyway.
It sucks because, like, he's talked about how his dad has had such a great time, and they show his dad on the rail, and his dad's beaming and, like, just so happy. And it sucks. Like, you want to root for the guy, but with all the other stuff going on, like, just not a chance.
Can't take it. Well, I think, so I talked a little bit about, to Dario last night. He's our short stack, of course, coming into the day with about 20 bigs. And it was great. He was so happy yesterday, which I was really surprised. Like all day yesterday, he was so happy. And I don't know. For me, I was thinking like laddering up like a couple 100K for Dario with more than 8 million in live tournament winnings. I don't know that necessarily matters so much to him. Like I think his biggest catch was like 1.6 million a couple years ago. Like I don't know. For me, I'm just thinking in terms of he can't be so happy that he like got 5th. I think he's so happy for some reason that's like has something to do with, and then I was asking him like, you seem really like thrilled. I have to assume it's not the pay jobs, and he said, I had a really exploitable stack size all day today. So I am the type of player that almost any player at the table with my stack size wants to come at.
Yeah.
And for ICM and for other reasons, such as I want to win the tournament, I had to be really quiet today, which actually worked out great because I didn't have any cards. So it was like a perfect kind of storm. And then he said, but tomorrow I have nothing left to lose.
Love it.
And
no
I was like,
pressure.
oh, it's so good. Like, and I get it. With 20 big blinds, it's like, all you have to do is get better. Like all it can do is get better.
Yeah.
Like you're in or out, dude. Like it's all, like there's nothing left. And so I'm really as excited as he was last night. I'm like really excited to see what he has up his sleeve. If he can score that double up, I feel like we might get some juicy poker action happening.
I love the approach. There's no pressure. He's like quote unquote expected to go out in 5th today. So like, if he does get that one double up, and how about how sharp Dario looked last night?
Italy.
Yeah.
Dude. Italy.
Those Italians, but especially when he dresses up like that.
Mm-hmm. I got to be honest with you.
I was
we're all trying to get the ladies into the game. You know what I mean? That was the best case scenario we have for that. I kept saying, I'm like, look at him. Look at how nice he looks. Some girl might scroll through ESPN and be like, hey, what's this? Yeah. I might check this out. And even, in fact, I was looking, who retweeted this? There's some comedian who was saying...
Nikki Glazer?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know who she is, but was saying like, oh, I'm like watching the WSOP ESPN main event final table to like try to find a husband. And I was like, smart girl.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's exactly what she said. And then Scott Blumstein tweeted at her and he said, "Sup." You know, you got to shoot your
it's
shot.
so good. I love it.
Yeah,
I love
gotta
it.
shoot
But
your
yeah, this
shot.
might be our one chance to bring the women to the game, guys. This is our one time.
She tweeted me with a picture of the dealer kind of checking out Gary Gates. She was the dealer was just looking at him because the action was on him.
Right.
But so I think she's a fan of Mr. Gates.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, so this is, I think a lot of people were expecting Enson to be putting on a lot of pressure
Yeah.
yesterday. And I would argue, A, maybe he really didn't have to because of the way things played out. But B, for me, it played out more the way that I expected it to, and that I don't think, that's his game. I don't think putting pressure on or playing very aggressive is really his style. He has a very solid style, but he also just seems to be really, really lucky. Like he has it every single time, and he has he dominates every flip, no question, right? Well, we're talking kings into ace 3 or it just seems like he's just dominating in every spot.
He does seem to be the guy that's running the best, quote unquote. Like you said, he always has it. His very rare bluffs always seem to get through, probably because players have seen that most of the time he does have it. He's getting a lot of good cards pre-flop, but he's not forcing the action in any way. I mean, and he could, with that many
Nobody
chips.
wants to play with him,
right?
right? Nobody
I
would
mean, you
want
could,
them.
even Gary made his 3-bet massive in that previous spot that we talked about to probably try to avoid playing with him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he could raise every single hand. It's still possible that he does do that today. But he's flown under the radar, I would say, for being as big of a chip leader as he is.
Yeah, for sure. And because nobody wants to play with him, I do think he could be potentially chipping up even more. But he's managed to stay out of it and continue to just grow his stack every day. So I'm like, okay, I'll stay out of it. You're doing great.
Yeah.
And of course, the standard question in the bust out interviews for everyone is always going to be, how do you see it play out? What are you seeing? And in general, most players said, obviously, if Dario gets chips, he's the most accomplished player, and that would be, a tough battle for anyone. But that most people seem to say that if Enson or Gates doesn't win it, they'll be surprised just because it's the chip discrepancy is so insane.
Yeah, I would say so. You have Enson with 173 big blinds, Gates with 143 big blinds, and then a huge drop off to Kevin Maas, who has 55 big blinds, Livingston with 38 bigs, and Dario, like we mentioned before, has about 20 big blinds. So again, we could really see this be the moment where Enson and Gates really put the pressure on the other 3 stacks. Or it's worked out for them so far to not
Let the other
really
guys
put
just
the
get it going.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we know Dario is going to pick and choose his spots. The way that the seating assignment is laid out, if it folds around to Dario, he's going to, with Kevin Maas on his left, put Kevin Maas in a bunch of tough spots.
Mm-hmm.
I think that.
And no one will be mad at that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that much is so true. I think Dario's in a really good position because he has the massive chip leader on his right who can dictate the action, and then he has probably the weakest player skill-wise on his left. So I think that's perfect. That's the way Dario would have drawn it up. And again, once he gets that double, if he gets that double, he could really be off to the races.
And I think, of course, because I missed a lot of the action, I'm not sure, but I have to assume that Gary's been playing incredibly to have, because in fact the gap between Enson and Gates yesterday was much deeper,
bigger,
and it seems like Enson chipped up a little bit, but Gary is getting closer and closer on his tails, and without getting to showdown too frequently, he called one of the all-ins. I think Gary was one of the all-in spots, but generally I would say not that many hands have been going to showdown that weren't all-ins.
Yeah, Gary busted Milos with the ace-queen against ace-jack, but other than that, I think we said it the other day, he's made the best decisions so far, the most consistent decisions is maybe a better way to phrase it. Now, he's run well also, saw a lot of good hands pre-flop. He flopped a straight, called a raise with 8-5 in the big blind, boom, came 4, 6, 7. That always helps a little bit.
Yeah,
so he
with
was able
8-5 when you're just like,
what are
you really hoping
and
for?
I think
that?
it was against Marchington's king-queen, and the turn was a queen. So, like, that's exactly how you draw it up. But with that said, he's been playing really well also.
And David makes a good point, and I'm always the biggest proponent of this. Like, chip leaders do not win tournaments 90% of the time.
Right.
That's a
there are no
little
smooth
known
rides
statistic.
to the top. Yeah.
But I think what's been interesting is also most of the time chip leaders coming into the final table don't remain the chip leaders for very long. The fact that Ensan's been able to hold it even for a couple of days is more. I mean, I was so surprised yesterday because really, it's generally speaking, I would say, you in these heads up, 50-50 situations, 50% of the time the short stack doubles up. But yesterday it was just like every time the short stack got it in, he busted the tournament.
It almost went too quickly because the original plan was to play down to 6, and then they got to 6, and they're like, we still need to fill this broadcast window on ESPN2.
And they wanted to just finish one more level, and they still couldn't finish that level. We busted another player before that level was even
So
over.
I'm curious as to how tonight will play out because, again, the plan is to play down to 3.
I'm curious how tomorrow is going to play out.
Right. But
it's like, see you guys.
You're going to be here a long time.
Like, when we're looking at 170-something big blinds for the chip leader, I'm just like, okay.
Well, so what if we see 2 bust outs right away tonight?
Yeah, great.
And then, like, what do they do? Like,
then we have the longest third day ever, which we've done a million times.
Right? It might be too risky to play tonight. What if you had some massive hand when there were just 3 players left, and the chip leader took out the other 2, and there you are, you have your champion tonight, when tomorrow night ESPN's sitting there like, hey, aren't you guys supposed to be airing something? And you're like, no, what about a replay?
Yeah, I mean,
so
it could be
tonight
trouble.
Could be super quick.
What's your prediction then for tonight? Because I actually predicted that last night would take forever, so that shows how good I am.
There is going to be a night that takes forever.
And
we
it's
just
almost
don't know
always
if it's
the
tonight
last
or
night.
tomorrow night. Right.
I mean, when you're playing for a pay jump of $5 million, like that's right. Isn't second place is something like $5 million? And
I think second place is 6
million.
It's still huge.
So 4, 6, and 10. I mean, for me, just based on ICM, like the last day should be the most complicated decisions for most of the players, who also may potentially be coming in with like hundreds of big blinds on the last day if things go. I mean, so we're looking at 19, 38, and 55 are the shorter stacks. If Dario doubles up, we might see 4 hours of play tonight, 5 hours of play, something like that.
That's a huge component of all this. My prediction is that Ensan and Gates continue to relatively coast, and Livingston just kind of hangs around like he always does. So those are my final 3 heading into tomorrow. But again, it could change. I mean, it just takes one cooler to really change everything, and it just takes one Dario double to make this night a lot longer. But if Dario busts right away and then Livingston is the quote-unquote short stack and he busts pretty quickly, I mean, they might stop play for tonight, but then tomorrow night,
get ready for
Sarah
it.
will be here for 3 straight nights. Yeah.
I think, I'm with you. I'm going to say my pick is, of course, Gary Ensan, and it should be Alex Livingston, but just for my own self and all the rest of the ladies out there, am I right, Ruth? I'm going to root for Dario to be here tomorrow.
That's fair. And Ryan says, our dealers, go Emily, Dominic, and Heather. They were fantastic yesterday. I mean, that has to be such a nerve-wracking stage. It's one of those positions where nobody really recognizes you if you do a great job.
Yeah.
I mean, we do, but like people outside the poker world.
Yeah.
And everybody recognizes you if you do something wrong.
Yeah.
So it's like a super intense, high-pressure situation, and I think they were all fantastic yesterday.
Also, shout out to Dominic, who got engaged this year at Disney World, I want to say. I got the whole scoop, so congrats to the Big D. And just so you know, Chad, we do see you in the chat, and we did have a long-ass convo about Moz, and you're right. Basically,
but we have not talked to
this is
him
the anti-Moz podcast for right now.
But
true. Which is interesting because I am a firm believer. Like I believe in prayer, I believe in all this stuff. If everyone hates him as much as it sounds like they do, he's probably first out, guys. Like, deuces, the karmic cycle is over.
Or he's going to win.
Or he's going to because that's the other thing I was thinking is, like, if that was a thing, Joe McKeon would never have won.
I swear, he was the first person that I thought of when you said that. I'm like,
that
does sound good in
sweat was
theory.
hard.
I do believe you in what you're saying, but sometimes it just doesn't work that way.
No chance. All right, well, we are definitely going to be giving you all the coverage, of course, here on PokerNews.com. We want to give a shout-out to our sponsors, Global Poker. Do we need to talk about about anything else before we go try to like get little interviews, etc.?
I don't think so. I think this is the big show, and we need to focus on the World Series of Poker main event. I think we're going to come back tomorrow, right?
Yeah, let's
to preview
do it.
the final 3.
Let's do it.
So see y'all then.
See you guys later. Deuces.